Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Scale Design Efficiently with DesignOps 2.0. Our speaker today is Erica Ryder, who leads the UX team for PayPal's internal developer tools. She will be talking about transforming the design process and empowering teams with an end-to-end development lifecycle. Erica will also share some insights about how her team has improved the design process for PayPal using UXPin Merge. UXPin Merge is a solution that bridges the gap between design and development by letting you import and keep in sync coded React components from Git repositories right into the UXPin editor. After Erica's presentation, we will have a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions to Erica during the presentation, feel free to ask in the chat. Hey, Erica, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Okay, let me share here. Okay, can you see my desktop?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. I am Erica, and I am here with a couple of my team members today to talk about our model for doing DesignOps 2.0. DesignOps 2.0 is how we've kind of come about how we scale design. We are a small design group in a very large organization. So I am going to start off with, so we're in an organization called the Tools and Platforms Experience at PayPal. And our group is responsible for all the tools used to build and develop and manage PayPal's business and all of the businesses that are a part of PayPal. This includes our developer experience tools, the tools that we use to build and deploy all of our products, monitoring tools, keeping the platform up and running, and different platform services like container management and also behavioral analytics, which is our kind of machine learning, understanding how people use the platform and everything else. So a typical designer to developer ratio, I'm going to guess that many people here know about this. Traditionally, kind of where the industry has been going has been a 1 designer to 10 developer ratio. Several years ago, designers had always been making the argument that UX is super important, which it is, and they need a seat at the table. And at some point they got a seat at the table, and companies started waking up and understanding how important design was. And the problem is be careful what you wish for, because now all of a sudden there's this huge demand on UX, and so they had to deliver. And so how do they deliver? Well, traditional design ops, the delivery model was about scaling designers. So you just keep adding more and more and more designers. And traditional design ops was about building operations to support these really large design organizations. Within TPX, within our organization, we are a team of 3 designers, and we support over 1,000 developers and close to 100 products. So this is a pretty accurate representation of what our designer to developer ratio is. We knew, because we were an internal organization, that if we tried to scale to this 1 to 10 model, it was going to be not realistic. We would have to have a really giant design team. And so we had to look for ways that we could actually scale design and provide a cohesive, coherent experience across all of the tools within our organization for PayPal in a consistent manner without building a large design team. And that led us to try lots of the more traditional stuff. We built design patterns, we built design systems and UI libraries and everything else. But one of the things that we really understood quickly was we have to actually enable product teams to do design on their own. And so providing design patterns and design guidelines and design and tools for building consistent products like UI libraries still leaves a lot of room for interpretation, and it still requires product teams and product managers to know too much about design, and this is not their area of focus. And so over about a year, we actually had to evolve. So this was our key question: how do we deliver a better user experience at scale? And so the 2 main areas that we focused on was UX being more strategic. A UX needs to focus on the big picture, high impact issues. One of the big products that we're building is something that we call a console, and the console is a integrated UI and delivery platform for all of the tools internal to PayPal. And so trying to provide end-to-end experience while we have a bunch of different teams that are actually delivering and shipping their own products on their own independent schedules. Um, and so what we do is we focus on this bigger picture. How do we deliver a platform? How do we deliver shared services that are consistent across all of these tools? We don't want to have each one of our products have search, like search functionality. We don't want users to go into a platform that looks the same, and really it's just kind of a glorified portal, because if I want to search for something, I have to go into every single product and I have to perform a search to find stuff. Search needs to be something that is global to our platform. The user can go to a global area, they can type in a search query, and that search query needs to return results that are across all of the extensions. If I'm searching for an object, I need to be able to see a result for an object, not an object in 15 different products. So we need to have a consistent, cohesive experience and a way for stuff to extend it that provides a unified experience. And so UX really focuses on that, right? And our area is not just on, hey, we do UI design, but it is really is what is the end-to-end user experience? And how do we provide the guidance and tools for smaller issues? So how do we actually enable product teams to move in a self-service model without a designer assigned to them for everyday stuff? And this is through designing strong guardrails. And really, we want to reduce the variables that lead to inconsistency. So we have a very opinionated path on the way that we do design, and providing design tools that actually kind of snap together. So this is a look at kind of more of a traditional product development and design model here. So in this model, we have some very isolated roles here. And what you have is you start off with a product manager, and the product manager has an idea of what this feature, what this product should look like and how it should work based on whatever knowledge they have from the marketplace. They have to take that visual picture in their head and they have to translate that into words that represent that picture. And those words are typed into Jira or whatever kind of ticket management system you're working with. The designer goes and they read that story, and they read those words, and they have to draw a picture in their mind of what those words are telling them. So based on that translation, they then have to go and they generate a gazillion static mockups in Sketch and post them on InVision, or maybe they're doing it in Figma. But it's a drawing. It's a representation of what they want to build, right? Or what they're thinking about. And that representation may or may not have any relationship to what the developer can actually build. So the developer then comes and they look at those gazillion mockups and static images, and they have to translate those static images into actually, how do I make this work? How do I make this function? And then they deliver this out to the end user. Now, product managers can talk to customers and kind of validate that their ideas are good. And then designers can kind of validate these static mockups. But it's not until the actual developer in this model, it's not until the developer actually has a working product that you can actually see how it feels, right? So you can do very low level, or sorry, very superficial level testing when it comes to this model here. And so what often happens is you deliver something out, and this is where you find out, hey, this maybe looked okay, but when I'm actually using it, it's not, I don't understand it, or this is not really what I'm looking for. And so this goes back to the PM, and making changes at this point are really expensive. They're really time consuming. And so, so essentially what you have here is you kind of these drawbacks that each role is really isolated. It's not really a collaborative model here. Designers have to produce a lot of static images, and the revisions are super expensive at this point. So this led us to DesignOps 2.0, because to do that traditional model that I just showed, that really does require a 1 to 10 relationship. And a lot of the static mockups that are being done are the same detail list or data grid. It's the same table with just different information in it. Or it's miles and miles and miles of paper prototypes of error messages, right? And those are pretty much the same. You can write a pattern and they need to be tested, but in reality, the designer spending time doing a lot of this stuff is taking away from really the stuff that really matters and delivering a really good user experience, which is how do you architect a platform? How do you do the lower level issues within when you're developing the underlying platform for your product? How do those impact the user experience? And what is the end-to-end user experience? And how does stuff stitch together? And what does it feel like to go through an end-to-end flow? Right. So a designer needs to be focusing on the real meat of the problems and not the icing on the top. So our mission statement for DesignOps 2.0 is to enable product teams to deliver useful and usable products or extensions to our platform. I'm going to kind of go through the list over here in a slightly different order than what I have them listed out here. But what we've found over the years is really to deliver a successful product, it requires two things. It requires somebody with a lot of domain knowledge, and it requires somebody with a lot of UX expertise. And a traditional model, what we did was we had designers would go out and they would learn enough domain expertise to where they could actually function on the UX for the product here. Then after a couple of years, they would move on to something else because it's what designers do. We get bored and we want to move on to a new challenge. And in most cases, that domain knowledge that we built up in that product is not something that's transferable. So we looked at it and I thought, well, what if we actually could take that and what if we could flip it around? And what if we could actually build enough of an environment where the domain experts could actually build enough expertise to do the UX design, to make good user experience decisions on their own with the support of a designer, right? So to do this at PayPal, we've kind of, and in our team, what we've discovered is some of the three key areas that we're trying to aim for within internal product development is delivering velocity, quality, and community. This is some of the stuff that we found in some of the user research within the developer community at PayPal. The velocity really was about it takes so long and there's so many roadblocks and actually delivering your extension or your product. And then delivering something with any kind of quality is fairly difficult, right? Because you don't know what's going on. You don't know who's working on what. You don't know how your extensions relate to other things. There are a lot of reasons that you can have stability issues that are not a result of what you've written, but of something else, and trying to track that down is really difficult. And then just feeling like there's a sense of community, like they know what's going on and everything else. So we took that stuff and we applied that to kind of our design model here. And so we've gone through and tried to create a design tool set that actually really increases the velocity from concept to prototype to actually end development for our product teams. And we're going to talk about UXPin and how we actually use that. UXPin was really a game changer for us in actually enabling that. And in this, we use standard components that snap together. And so we have a library of our React UI components that we use to build all of our extensions. That same library is used in our prototyping. And one of the key things here, well, a couple of key things here is that we don't have any drift between our prototypes and what's being built. So much so that I've worked with teams and looked at their beta of their application and looked at their prototypes, and we go back and forth and I get lost. I'm like, wait, am I looking at the product or am I looking at the prototype? And it's a little difficult to actually track because their end products look exactly the same. And one of the other interesting or really nice factors is that when we make a change to our UI library, say we make some CSS changes or we make a change to the component, that change passes down not only to all the extensions that are using that, if they're using it as we intended, but it also passes down to all of our prototypes. So not only do we not have any drift between our prototypes and our products, but we don't have drift from release to release. So prototypes are automatically updated with the latest components here. As I mentioned earlier, this console platform that we're working on is it's federated product development. So what I've found in building platforms like this in the past is Federated development is great in theory, but it is a nightmare to try and have a consistent, cohesive experience when you have distinctly federated teams that are building products. So really, we need to deliver design at scale, but we need to maintain consistency across all of these products that are doing federated development. So how do we actually do federated design in a consistent manner? And so that was really something that we thought long and hard about. So in a traditional design and development workflow here, what you would have is, this is not traditional, this is what we have now, but you used to have something where you had a design ops or a design workflow, and then that would get tossed over the fence to a product development team, and they would go through kind of a DevOps workflow. And they're two separate flows. So design ops sounds very similar. Traditional design ops sounds very similar to DevOps, but it's really not. It's a completely different animal. And what we really did is, as we looked at this and we said, well, what if we actually took a lot of the methodologies that are in DevOps, and what if we applied those to design ops, right? DevOps, there used to be a there used to be an ops team and a development team, and the development team would build a product, and then they would have to turn it over to the ops team, and then they were at the mercy of the ops team to actually get this released into production. And so DevOps came along, and what DevOps did was, you had this ops team now, and this ops team just built the environment and the guardrails and everything else for the product teams to be able to deliver their products on their own, right? Within this kind of safe walled garden. Well, we thought, well, what if we actually could do the same thing with design? And so we've taken that same model here, and then we went a little bit further and we said, well, what if we actually integrate design into this DevOps workflow? And what if it is a single flow for a product team to go through this entire life cycle? And it starts out with discovery and definition and design and develop and evaluate, and then on to deploy and operate. So where we're at right now in this process of kind of figuring this stuff out is we have a pretty good handle on the design portion of this, and in transitioning from design to development. And where we're at right now is we're looking at, what does evaluate look like? And evaluation, traditionally has been, okay, well, let's do all of our bug and regression testing and everything else. But evaluation for us also is, what does it look like to have a release checklist for user experience? What about UX actually being a gatekeeper for stuff shipping, right? And so we're kind of figuring that stuff. And how do we actually, to do this, we have to actually have ways that we can measure user experience in a objective manner. Remove the subjectiveness from the evaluation phase, and what is good user experience. So we're kind of working through this now. How do we actually track metrics? How do we do things like benchmark, baseline benchmark analysis? How do we build in stuff directly in all of our products to capture user feedback? And then how do we actually correlate that user feedback to what users actually did? So understanding what they did, what they said, and what they did, and understanding when that's different and what that kind of means, so we can get a better understanding of what they're saying. So this here is a diagram that kind of lays out what our DesignOps2 model looks like. And in a more traditional model, you would have you would have the notion of a 3 in a box. You'd have a designer and a product manager and a development lead, and they would kind of work together as a tightly knit team. This requires, like I said earlier, this requires a lot of designers, because you have to have at least one designer to every team. And then what happens to the teams that don't have a designer? How do you deal with that? So what we've done here is we say, okay, well, we have 2 in a box, or we have a product team in a box, and then that box is in a shipping container, and we have a designer to a shipping container. So that designer is really responsible for a lot of boxes, right? They sit outside the box, but they have a really tight relationship to all of the boxes. It's just that they're not within one box here. And they act, the designer acts as a coach or a mentor to the product team, but the product team is responsible for doing all the research and really understanding who their users are. That's everybody on a team. If we're going to transform an organization from an engineering focused organization to a truly user-centric organization, it means that everybody has to have a common understanding of what user experience is, what is good user experience, who their users are, and they have to actually think from a user's perspective. And this kind of led us to develop what we call a user's bill of rights for our products. And And some of those items are, as a user, I have the right to products built with my best interest in mind, right? And what this means is that for product teams, they're responsible for delivering something that is for the user. Deliver something that it has the user's best interest in mind, not what is necessarily easiest for you to deliver. But we have to kind of balance that out because the best user experience is the one that you can ship. So you can't take years to deliver something. So there is a balance to that. Now, product teams are also responsible for doing their own design, and that's with guidance from the UX team. And so that's kind of the model that we see up here above in this chart. Is this model here is a domain expert has an idea of what their product looks like, and it's not now that they're translating that picture into words. They have an idea of this is how this looks and works in their head, and these are the requirements that need to be fulfilled as part of this. And so they take that image of that product that they have, and they go into UXPin and they use our tool set in UXPin, and they actually are going to they're actually going to build a prototype, and they can do this really quickly. A typical page that used to take a designer a couple of days to do, let's say just a standard page that had a data grid that had a lot of different information in it, and maybe you take an action and it changes the information that you see. That was a considerable amount of work. It's a super simple page, but that would take a day to do for a designer who was really experienced. A product manager is never going to be able to do that. So with what we have done here is we've really designed our tool set around product managers and how does a product manager actually do this design and how do they think? And so now we have a component that is a data grid, and we'll show some of the stuff in a little bit here, but the product managers can just drag this component in. They can go to Excel, they can export a CSV and copy that CSV and paste it, and the table renders for them. We use all the same components to layout that we would use for our end products as well. We use all the same grid components. Everything's the same, right? So when a developer comes and looks at this, they see actually we can't build anything in a prototype that can't be built in a product, right? So we're not doing what quote pixel perfect mockups, which I think pixel perfect mockups is a misnomer, because if you're drawing something in Photoshop or Sketch or whatever, you're drawing a representation. It's not a real representation of a bowl of fruit. It is your interpretation of a bowl of fruit. You can paint that fruit with a purple apple in it, but when you go to the store to try and reproduce that, you're never going to find a purple apple, right? And so you're never going to get pixel perfect, right? You have to build with the same components. The other thing is that you really have to have a way that you can feel this product, right? So now, because all of our domain experts are actually building stuff with the real components, there is not a picture of a drop-down menu or a drop-down pop-up menu or anything like that. There's a real pop-up menu. There's a real data grid. The data grid has filtering and search built into it. When we use our charts, our charting library, it's a real chart. We're populating that with real data, and it works. And so when we put this out in front of a user doesn't just say, hey, this looks pretty, but they get a feel of how this actually works. And so because this is rapid, where this used to take 2 days to build a page like this, it can be done in minutes. And my lovely assistant, Sandeep, is going to do a demo here in a little bit, and he's going to show how we can do this. And but this allows you to actually have quite a bit of collaboration with your development team, and you can iterate with the domain expert and the developers, the product development team, really quickly, so they have a good understanding of actually where you're going with stuff. And you're not tossing stuff over the wall. You're collaborating and you're having a conversation. And in that also, you're having the collaboration with your end users. And because it is so rapid to do these iterations, you can have a conversation with a user and you can iterate in 15 minutes and you can go back. I have lots of meetings where I'm actually iterating in the meeting as we're talking about stuff and we're changing things. And I've seen product teams do the same thing here. And so then what's delivered after you've gone through this process, and you can continually go through this process until you really refine down what you're looking for and you have a really good sense of what you're looking for. And then what's delivered to the developer at the end is a working prototype, so they can go through it and they can see how it feels, right? And they can see what's delivered in your requirements are, hey, you need to use this API gateway or whatever, right? use this technology, do this, response time should be under X amount of time, right? And so the developer has been involved in this collaboration. So it's not just stuff being tossed over the wall. They really should have a good understanding at this point in time. And they can see a working prototype, and they can actually look into that and see some of the JSX code and get an idea of how things are laid out. Now, we have had to make some changes to the way that we actually render some of our components. We've written wrappers around them. We're using the same component, but we've written a wrapper around that component to make it easier for us to configure it. And so what happens is sometimes when you look at the JSX code, it's slightly different, right? But they can have an understanding of, it's just kind of maybe the way stuff is organized. It might be, it's little things that are different. So they have to understand really that difference there. But at this point, the developer has a much clearer picture. There's a lot less questions that they have to answer. And so they can deliver something much quicker to the end market. And now at this point, because you've done lots of rounds of iteration with your users, there should be no surprises. Usually what we find that happens at this time is it's some refinements, you know, oh, a button needs to be moved from this place to this place, or you're using the wrong icon for this action. Change this icon here. And so I kind of went through what the responsibilities are of the product team, but this means that the UX team has had to actually have a significant change in what their responsibilities are. And so we look at this as they have to provide a self-service model here. And so this means that they have to deliver easy to use design tools. And we knew this early on, and we looked at a lot of different things. We looked at using Axure, which I really like Axure. I like being able to do really detailed prototypes. I find that I don't really need that for everything. And there's no way that I can hand that off to a product team and expect them to figure it out. But we needed a single tool where we could do good enough design. We had enough of the interactivity. We had a way that we could have a design system, all of that. So even before we started working with Merge, we decided that we were going to go the UXPin route, and we were going to deliver more of the traditional UXPin type of prototypes, because we could have a single tool that we actually would give to product managers. And they only had to learn one tool. We didn't have to actually have 7 different tools. I can't expect them to learn a bunch of different tools. We have to minimize that. And so along with this, we have provided kind of not just the design guardrails. Where we've gone to is we have design patterns and that, but what we've really tried to do is we've built in the components. We have a layout component that lays out a page, and we don't have to tell you this is how you use this component and that component. You just drag a page in, and stuff goes where it goes. And when you put it in the right spot, it just automatically lays it out. That's it. Right. So we've taken out a lot of the documentation that we have to do. We still have to do documentation, but we don't have to do as much because we don't have to translate every little thing. We build it in. And we've applied that same model actually to when we're doing the development of our platform. And so the goal is kind of to think about what's the easiest way for a product team to get from nothing to something. And what if we could actually get them to delivering 80% of a good design, consistent design on their own, and we can take in the other 20%? We've actually found that it's been much higher than that. So we do provide, we've provided a lot of documentation, or some documentation, a lot of training videos. And I have Anthony Hand, who's on the call also, that I'm going to have him kind of talk a little bit at the end about the training videos. But because early on, we decided that we wanted to do this and not have a lot of documentation. And we've been creating our own like LinkedIn Learning or Udemy like system to not just teach how to use UXPin, but to teach how to use the components that we specifically have. We have over 3.5 hours of videos of that. And so any team, Sandeep, who's going to do the demo here in a little bit, is a good example of somebody who watched the videos and got up and running really quickly here. And so that's a little bit of the guardrails and the paved path, and then providing support to our product team. So we don't just say, hey, here's the tools, here's some guidelines, you're on your own, go. We interact with them regularly. And we've changed our model of doing office hours. And so when we do office hours now, we don't just say, okay, we have office hours once a week. We have a whole system where any product team can go to our link that is our console UX, our design ops, console UX office hours. And it's got a list of services, and you can sign up for my office hours or Anthony's office hours, or you can say, I want to do a design review and I want one or more people there. And product teams can do that. And it looks at our calendar. We say, these are the hours we have available. It looks at our calendar and just automatically books us, right? Any time that's free, anybody can take that time. If it's on our office hours page is available, they can take it. We expect teams to take the office hours. We do not chase them down, but we do look at stuff along the way and we go, oh, okay, you're kind of gone. You've gone off the reservation here. We need to kind of do what we can to bring you back in the fold here. And like I said earlier, by doing this really has freed up a considerable amount of time for the UX team to where we can actually focus on real UX issues. What are the overarching issues? What are the big ticket items? And also providing the care that's needed and research that's needed to provide new components for our product teams. So with that, I am going to introduce Sandeep. Sandeep is one of our product managers. I'm going to let him talk about it. But what I really felt strongly about here was I didn't want us to just do a demo where it's me or Anthony. Anthony usually does the demos of our tool set. But I thought that it would be really nice for everybody to get to see, here is an actual client. Here is somebody, Sandeep is not a designer, he's a product manager. And he came to us with a requirement, a tool that he needed to build. And I spent a little bit of time with him and got him up and started and pointed him to the videos. And then I meet with him about a half hour a week or when he needs it. And so he's going to go through the demo and show you from a product manager standpoint, how do I do this? Not from a designer standpoint. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Sandeep and to go through the demo here, and I will let him introduce himself.
Hey, thanks, Erika. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Everything's fine.
Perfect. Let me share my screen as well. I'm getting a message you cannot start screen share while other participant is sharing. Maybe Erika, you can stop sharing. And I'm going to share my screen first and let me know when you can see my screen. Can someone tell me if they can see my screen?
Yes, we can see everything now.
Perfect. It's basically a Chrome with UXPin on it. Hey, thanks, Erika. This is Sandeep Yevle. I'm a product manager at PayPal. I'm in the same team as of Erika and Anthony. Among other things, I'm responsible for quality and productivity reporting. So that's briefly about me and my role. In terms of UXPin, I have been a user of UXPin for about last 3 months, and it has served me really, really well. I have found it useful in many ways. Some of the ways I could say is it has forced me to think very hard on what kind of overall user experience I want to provide to my customers. I'm able to share my prototype with the engineers and customers that are geographically distributed, get feedback from them in real time, iterate on the design quickly. It has allowed me to kind of get a product to the market that is more predictable. There is less rework during and after development time, and overall I would say that it has improved my time to market considerably. So I think that's the benefit that I have seen from UXPin so far. And what I will do right now is I will create a simple mock-up. It's basically a miniature design that I have, miniature design of my real product that I have created at PayPal. As I'm doing it, if you have any questions, let me know. In the interest of time, I may go a bit faster, but then we have about 10 minutes later to answer any questions. So again, I'm just an end user of UXPin. I'm not a designer. I'm a product manager. A lot of framework or a lot of foundation work has been done by UXPin and Erika and Anthony from this team. So what I'm going to do right now is I will create a reporting prototype, and let me start doing that. The first control that I'll be using is the PayPal page template. This PayPal page template is nothing but basically a combination of components that has a global header, a standard navigation bar, a title, a body, and a footer. Let me know if you are not able to see what I'm showing. Please let me know. At the same time, I'm showing you guys the simulation of it on the other window. Hopefully, it will load up soon. By the time it loads up, let me go to my. Okay, what I will do is I will do some mechanical things. I will adjust the height as per the recommendation. Sorry, adjust the height of my page as per the recommendation from our designers. I will adjust the height of the navigation bar, and so this is my God, I don't know why this is still loading up. Not good during the demo time. Okay, perfect. Now what I'm going to do is my report name right now, it's called foo, but that's obviously not the report name. So I'm going to change that by going to to a control called header. I'm going to call it this is my real report name at PayPal. It's called Developer Insights. So I changed my report name. As I changed the report name, the changes get reflected in real time in the simulation. On the top right hand side, you will see something called as you'll see this a circle saying GU guest user. This is basically the profile of the user who has logged in. I'm going to change the profile of that user in real time here. I'm going to call this user as, instead of guest at paypal.com, I'm going to call the user as Jane Doe at paypal.com, and I'm going to change the display name appropriately. And then I'm going to remove all other parameters like country, desk, and so on. Basically now this is just in the simulation. If everything is fine, you will see that now this is the logged in user is Jane Doe and the display name. The next thing that I will do is I will change the navigation. This navigation is basically meets our PayPal branding guidelines. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to you will see a bunch of icons. Erica and Anthony here, they have provided us with over 1,000 such icons, and I'm going to in the interest of time, I'm going to copy paste and change the over here. What's going on? Okay. So this is my nav bar. I'm changing my navigation here, and you will see the navigation, the menu getting changed. These are my actual menu items: defects, incidents, corrective actions. I'm going to change the index of it and going to make this is a defect report, so I'm going to make that as a selected item here. So this is basically my navigation. Now, whatever I'm doing here, it's getting reflected in the simulation. I'm going to now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the title here, which can be changed by going to the control called page header. I don't need any super text, so I'm going to get rid of it. This is a defect report, so I'm going to call it a defect, and I'm going to remove the subtext. So far, what we have done is we have changed the report name, have a navigation, and then created basically or provided a custom report name. Now we'll work on the body here. To work on the body, let me just click on my page body component. Every report has a filter. So let me start with my first filter. I'm going to create a filter. I'm going to first create a control called as text. And let me drop that text in my body. I'm going to call that text as, let's say, select user. So what I'm going to do here is, as I said, the logged in user is Jane Doe, but Jane can, by default, when the report gets loaded, Jane will see her information or her manager's information, but she can change the user and get the report for whichever user that she selects. So that's just my title. And then another control that we have available is called people picker. So this is my people picker. I'm going to add that to my under my text. Sorry, under the body. Sorry. Come on, do it. Okay, 1 second. I will come back to it. So this is people picker. I'm going to do an inline selection, and just give me a couple of minutes as I am doing this. As I finish doing this, it will all make sense to you guys, I promise. And then again, every report has a time range. So there's a control available called calendar button. So I'm going to get that as well over here. And I'm going to call that, let's say this report is for last 1 week. So I'm going to say October 22 to, let's say, today, something like that. And now what I'm going to do is, as you can see, this information is kind of getting arranged maybe vertically. I'm going to, there is a control available called PayPal horizontal stack. So horizontal stack is nothing but a stack with 1 row and multiple columns. So I'm going to put that in the under my page body, and I'm going to drop all the items under the horizontal stack. Sorry. Over here, and over here. And I need text to go first. Okay. And give me 1 second. I'm just going to do some mechanical things over here. And now if you see the, so this is basically my filter right now. I can select a user. There are about 15 to 20 fake users here, and then I have my timestamp here. So this is basically my filter. We could, there are a lot many things that can be done here, but this is basically the gist of it. I am going to. What I'm going to do is, one more thing I'm going to do is, okay, so now that I have my filter, basically every report will have some kind of a visualization and then a data grid. Now the next thing I'm going to add is a visualization. There is a chart called, there is a component called P-series chart, and I'm going to do some, I'm going to adjust the width and height of the chart. I'm going to make it a column chart. I'm going to call the title as open defects. I don't need any subtitle. x-axis title, I'm going to call it as a manager. I don't need a second series, right? Sorry, I don't need a second series right now, so I'm going to remove it. Just give me 1 second. I promise it will again make sense to you once I'm done with this. I am going to make this again. This is basically Jane Doe is now going to see defects by open defects grouped by her manager. So I changed the series name to manager there, and I'm going to copy and paste data from a text file here. So this is over here. 1 second. All right, so let me just quickly go to my simulation. You will see it was there. 1 second. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Okay, let's see what happened with 0 categories. Okay, I see where what I did wrong. Okay, 1 second. This is manager, series name, series name, series 1. Okay, 1 second. Okay, give me 1 second. X-axis title, categories. Okay, this is my series name. Okay, I think this has to be manager again. Series 1 name manager. Ah. Uh, 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to refer to my design quickly to see what I'm doing wrong here. PayPal page body, P series chart. So this is my series name and this is my, okay, I got it. P series chart. So give me 1 second. This is manager is correct. This is categories. Okay. I have it over here. And then this is my data. Let me just go back to my data here. All right, so hopefully this is now making sense. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So this is my visualization now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a details table. Basically, this is the table equivalent to this chart I have. The component is called details list. And what I'm going to do is the beauty about details list is you can export it from Excel/CSV. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Give me a second. So this is these are my titles of my table. Let me just go there. This is my title. And My rows are right here. So again, copy paste. And here you go. So if I did everything right, it should all show up here. Right. So what I have done so far, or what I have done is, this is a simple mockup of a report. There is a navbar, there is a title, a filter, a visualization, and corresponding to that visualization, this is the data table. Of course, everything is sortable. For example, I just sorted by manager. The filter works as you expected. So if I type Patricia here, it should just show Patricia. I can go back to my original table. There is a footer here for obvious purposes for your product support and other internal PayPal related support channels. So I guess just to wrap, I mean, this unfortunately I could show you maybe just 1 or 2% of what I have done so far, but it has been again, just to wrap up, it has been like super useful for me to share my thoughts with the design with my engineers and with my customers, and get feedback on a real-time basis and iterate on it. And whatever goes to the market right now, it's something that my customers have already seen. So there are very little surprises. I guess with that, I will hand over the presentation to Erica.
Unmute myself here. And go back to here. Okay. Thank you, Sandeep. I'm going to move on to our last slide here. I want to have Anthony talk a little bit about kind of like what we're doing to support our product teams here quickly, and then we'll open it up to answer some of the questions.
Hey folks, this is Anthony. So I spent most of Q2 importing these UI controls into UXPin and setting up the configurations. You know, each UI control has a gazillion ways to configure it in as far as its API goes. And so one of the things that we did was we simplified the configuration for each of the controls and tried to make them as simple as possible. In addition to that, I went and recorded, inspired by Udemy, inspired by lynda.com and LinkedIn Learning, I recorded these brief 3 to 5 minute video snippets showing how to take each of those controls and configure them in UXPin. I showed how to use UXPin generally and create a prototype, how to run a prototype. And then there's some advanced things within UXPin, such as if you want to type into a text field, take that value from that text field, store it in a variable, and then express that value somewhere else in UXPin, totally doable. Or for example, if you need to get a checkbox, you need to know whether it's checked or unchecked so you can do something interesting in your prototype, also totally doable. So I showed these little recorded these little videos over a couple months in my spare time. And as you heard Erica mention, people within PayPal who are working on these developer extension sort of tools are actually watching these videos. And I've heard a lot of great feedback from folks about how easy they are to consume and help them figure out how to use this. I'm also working on an internal training program, UXPin 101, 102, 103, intended to be taken by product managers and engineering leads especially, or even regular engineering folks. And these will be 1-hour workshops for each of those. So I hope to start pushing those training courses out next month or December. So I think I'll end there in the interest of time so we can have some time for feedback, unless you have anything else, Erica.
No, I wanted to take some time to answer questions here. I was looking through the Q&A there. We're not going to be able to get through everything, but I would like to find a way that we can actually go through and answer all those questions for everybody. So
Great. So actually, yeah, because we ran over time. Thank you guys for an amazing presentation. I see that everyone loved it. We have a lot of questions. So we will answer them all in an article that we will share along with the recording, most likely on Monday. But we can take some time to still answer one or two questions live on the webinar. How about a question from Aria? How can we sell DesignOps as a product and pitch it to the client? Suppose I run a business of my own and I need to sell my DesignOps. How would I do that?
well, actually, I think that it works really well for that type of situation here, because what you're doing is you're building the system and a way to go about doing kind of doing this and enabling these clients to do some of the design on their own. And then, I mean, we've gone through and we've had to sell it within the organization here. And it really is, it takes kind of understanding what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, the benefits of this. The benefits for us have been significantly faster time to market for all of our products. One thing Sandeep didn't mention was I met with him one time, spent 30 minutes with him, and came back a couple days later, and he had like 4 or 5 prototypes, 4 or 5 pages built in his prototype, and within a couple of days. And we were able to review that. And then it was probably about a week later that Anthony sent me a Slack message and said, "Hey, I got this chat from one of the developers in India, and they had this other prototype." And so that developer had taken what Sandeep did and had iterated on that, and then started collaborating with Anthony on that. So being able to show kind of the benefits, and it's not just, hey, you can get from nothing to something, to having developers understanding what you're doing really quickly, but it's very collaborative, and being able to do that collaboration. And as a consultant, you kind of enable them to work within the guide rails that you establish for them, and they can kind of take a little bit of ownership of that, and you can consult and collaborate better with them. So there's sales that go into it. We had to get a lot of buy-in from kind of the entire organization, and that took really building out a proof of concept and showing how this could work and how this actually could change the way we do product development in our organization. So I think that the most effective way is showing it. It is so different, the way that we work from the traditional models of doing this, that just talking about it is really a hard sell. You have to show it.
All right, thank you. Maybe one more from Array. With the initial 1,000-to-1 ratio of devs to designers, why couldn't the design team and staff scale up?
Well, we're at about a 1 to 311 ratio right now. We're 3 to 1,000. But nonetheless, to try and get to that 1 to 10 ratio, we're an internal group. We're not a consumer-facing group here. And so so the way that we're looked at is we are not a revenue generating organization. And so it's fairly common where if you're not revenue generating, that expecting to have an organization that is that large of designers it is really unrealistic. Our design team would have to be around 100 designers, and I think that's too much. And then we do have to get into a traditional design ops model where we have to hire people to actually manage operations between them. How do we keep them happy? How do we manage drift between different designers and everything else? And so we're going to scale up a bit, but I'm trying to find out what the sweet spot is for us. And I think that a 1 to 10 ratio is really for us. And I think for a lot of organizations is really bloated. And so I don't quite know yet what the optimum ratio is. We are understaffed for that large of an organization, but as we kind of go through this, we are figuring out where we think that sweet spot is. I think it might be around a 1 to 75 or 1 to 50.
All right. And how long did it take you to get the product teams to adapt the new process?
Minutes. Honestly, it was minutes. I'm like, wait, what? You know, even if you have a 1 to 10 ratio, design is seen as a bottleneck, right? And design has to go through so many different iterations, and there's so much ramp up time for designers to learn to gain that domain knowledge to where they can actually effectively do design. And so if you can kind of put the guardrails there for a product team, but those domain experts, product managers, I call it a domain expert because most of the time it's a product manager, but we have a lot of products that don't have a product manager. Their domain expert, or the person who acts as a product manager, is a senior developer with no product management experience at all. And so I kind of expand that out into, well, we can enable them as well. But it's really quick. I mean, I went out to Austin and met with a team in January, and we didn't have anywhere near the components that we have now. It was really a alpha version of what we have now. And I spent a day with them. One thing that we didn't mention is we spent a lot of time teaching design thinking. And that's where we focus a lot with teams, is how do you think? How do you think from a user's perspective? How do you make good design decisions? How do you do some kind of heuristic evaluations? And how do you answer these questions at any time as a user? How do I know where I am? How did I get here? What am I supposed to do? You know, what's my primary action, my primary takeaway? How do I get out of here? Right? Just being able to answer those kind of questions at any time. And we have to teach them that, but they learn. And the teams that are on board, they're really excited. Or, well, most of them are a little skeptical at first, and it takes less than a 30-minute conversation with them before they're on board. And within, I'm constantly blown away how quickly they pick it up. And we do demos like this within the organization. And after every demo, we never go out and we never chase down teams to work with us. They always come to us. And if a team doesn't want to work with us, we don't. We tell them, you're on your own. But I mentioned in the chat there that we are working on an evaluation phase, and how do we actually grade the effectiveness of user experience. And within the organization, we're trying to roll this out where every team, the user experience will be graded for every team, and whether or not they're working in our model, and we will call them out as red. If they're red and out of compliance, we'll call them out. And then we send that report out. We're going to be sending that report out to everybody in the organization every week, all the way up to the CTO. And so it will specifically call out the teams that are not performing in user experience. It's a team's responsibility to deliver a good user experience. To deliver a good user experience, teams have to be held accountable for delivering a good user experience. Otherwise, there is no incentive to do that. And that is where most places fall short, is their teams are held accountable for delivering secure code and bug-free code. They're not accountable for delivering a good user experience. And I think that is the hardest sell, but the most important sell.
All right, thank you. We will be wrapping up as we hit 1 hour of our webinar. I see that everyone loved the presentation. You shared a lot of insights. And I think that a lot of people are also looking forward to the recording, which we will share early next week. So Erica, Anthony, and Sandy, you were our stars today. Thanks a lot.
Thank
for
you.
the demo and the presentation. Okay, like I said, we will answer all questions in an article that we will send out in an email after the webinar with the recording. And if there's anything that you wanted to ask, but you just didn't, you can hit us up on Twitter at UXPin. Thanks, guys. Once again, thank you, everyone, for joining. And peace out, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.